Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Angie.
And together we are TwinFinity.
We are twin flames back with another question and answer video. This is actually our second one in the same month. We are trying to attempt to do at least 2 in a month, and we're succeeding.
So far, doing very well.
Yay for us. Before we get into the question and answer, I just wanted to say welcome to all of our new subscribers and new likes on Facebook. We've had a lot of new people connecting with us on our Facebook page, TwinFinity, so just wanted to say welcome to all of you. Usually it gives me a notification when people connect with us on our page, so I always send you a little hi and a little bit of energy, but I like to actually acknowledge you in person too. And also for those of you that connect with us on YouTube, we now have what's called a community tab, so we can do extra communication with you. I don't do a lot, or I was going to say I do a lot on Facebook. We post a lot of other stuff than just videos, but of course on YouTube you can't do a lot of that. It's just videos. But now with this community tab, I can actually post messages and pictures. So some of the stuff that I post on Facebook, I have been also posting now on YouTube as well. Certainly not everything, but if you watch us or connect with us on YouTube and not Facebook, then feel free to check out the community tab for some extra stuff. Like I shared our badminton night.
Yeah,
our fun badminton story. So yes, just wanted to say welcome. Happy to have you.
So are we going to go off and running on the first question?
Yep, I think it's good.
We have two long questions.
Long questions.
One thing that I'd like to note before we get into these questions is both of them talk about being apart for 17 years.
Yeah, which is interesting, because that's how long we were apart.
That's right. So, yeah, there's lots in common with these questions. I'm going to have to breathe real deep. The first question is quite long, and sometimes we take long questions and we condense them. I didn't even want to condense this one. It was very good the way that it was. And so therefore, I'd like to dive into it. Everyone got their popcorn ready? It's going to take a little while. Okay. It starts out, how do we have faith in this journey? That right there is a question, but we're going to continue on. I've been on this journey for 3 years, and my twin does just the same thing time after time, no matter where I am energetically. All the spiritual work I've done, all the healing, he keeps doing the same thing. He finally comes back around, and I think reunion will happen, and then he ghosts me again. How am I to have faith? Rob seems to always message you and respond.
Oh, but you didn't.
But I didn't. But for many of us going through this journey, now it seems like our twins just aren't making any progress as far as communication. I am sending love constantly. I've detached. I'm not angry at him. I've tried everything. I do energy work. I have transformed myself. I have let go to the best of my ability. And he just reached out again after 7 months to say that he wanted to see me again, and then he ghosted me again. After I finally surrendered, this is the 4th time he has promised to see me and then ghosts me. My heart and soul are now having to start over. Not sure how to live through this heartache again. It's insane. How will I ever trust him? I've worked so hard not to be attached or to create the same pattern because I knew my energy is so important too, in the mirroring, but in the end, he did it again. We are human. How much can we take? I just don't know where to go from here. Do I give up? But I know I can't cut the cord. It's like being stuck. Damned if you do and damned if you don't. Do you have any suggestions? I've been doing SRT, Reiki, acupuncture. You name it. Talking to my guides. But his promising and then ghosting is starting to really take its toll on me. Will he ever change? I know 200% he is my twin. We have the same story as you and Rob. We knew each other in our 20s and reconnected after 17 years apart in 2016. He isn't even married. I can't look at another man since being with him in 2016. I just can't deal with the broken promises anymore. I thought we were coming to reunion last week, and now here I go again. No word from him. I'm at wit's end. Any guidance would be appreciated.
So you can appreciate the frustration, the discouragement, the lack of hope this poor woman is feeling. And why we decided to read this whole question is because we know a lot of you go through this. This is quite a common thing from, what we read, what we hear in the twin flame communities. So first, just to share compassion with you. I get it. I know it's, you just want to throw up your hands and go, what? I'm doing all this work. But, I can throw the but in there. You know how usually I write little notes on the side of all these things? I only have one word on the side of this one. Expectations. What I hear through this whole thing is I've surrendered, but I haven't. I've surrendered in my mind, but not really. There's still a lot of ego. And I don't say that to be hurtful or mean or insensitive. And ego isn't a bad thing. But there's a lot of ego in the sense of, I'm doing all this and he should come back. When we're in our soul, we do all the things we do for us, not for anybody else, not for any expectation of getting any result other than feeling good about our own selves and doing our own healing for our own growth. And I'm hearing a lot of, but I've done this, so that should make him come back. So that's a lot of expectations.
Just to kind of reiterate what Angie has said, but maybe say it a little bit differently. This person has done work, they've done work, they've done work, they've done work, they've done work. But is the work on self-improvement with the thought that if you improve self, that then in 5D there's going to be changes that will be felt on the other side by the twin? Or has all the work been trying to just set up the relationship without actually advancing self?
Right.
Yes. This is sometimes so hard to keep on trying to tell in many different ways that the work must be based on self first, and then you can have a little bit of hope. Hope is always a good thing. Hope is very important. Hope is what we hang on to. But when you advance it to the next stage of expectation of result, I have done something, therefore I want a result. I totally agree with Angie. That's then takes the focus off of yourself, and energetically, it almost feels like an attempt to manipulate the other side, manipulate the twin.
And maybe that's not even on a conscious level. So yeah, manipulate's a good word, but it's not, the way we think of manipulate. It's more the ego is like, okay, well, if I do this, then he'll come back. If I do that, he'll come back. But we have to get to the point in the journey where we do what we do for us, not to get anybody back or to get anywhere further with another person. It has to come from the deeper respect and honor of the self, that you're on this journey for you, and if your twin comes back because of it, great. But that can't be your intention. That can't be the motivation. Because if it is, the twin reads that, which is why they keep ghosting you, because they can feel that the energy still isn't balanced.
They may even be feeling some of the same old, to use a term. You do a bunch of work, but the energy that comes off of that work is still the same. I have an expectation that you're going to contact me and that we're going to get together and that this relationship is going to get started. Sometimes very tough to talk about how you can be on a path of self-improvement, but it's very possible that your twin in this phase of life, not talking about this entire lifetime, but with the thought that our lives go through different phases, sometimes 3, 5, 7 years at a time, sometimes your twin is not advancing anywhere near at your level during this time. Sometimes when you need to let go a little bit is when the energy changes and your twin actually starts to grow and have a greater opportunity to accept yourself.
Yeah.
If they keep on feeling that old energy, it's not changing. Therefore, there's nothing about it that becomes any more or less desirable. So if you keep the energetic pressure on getting together, as opposed to maybe backing off and just letting them, both energetically and physically, just be on their own. Sometimes when they're on their own, that's when change comes along, because then they're not saturated with the energy that's always coming at them. There's room for new energy. Took a long time to wrap that around, but that's where I needed to go.
Two other comments I wanted to make on this is twice in everything that this person is saying, they talk about when I saw him again, when I was going to see him again, I thought this was reunion. Do you see where that's where the expectation is? If you're thinking that it's going to be something other than just a visit, then you're still in a place of expectation. You're not in a place of surrender, and you're not in a place of letting go. And I know it can be hard to understand what that really means when we think we've let go and we think we're in a place of surrender. But if you catch yourself still going, well, okay, we're going to meet and this is going to happen and that's going to happen, that's still expectation. So be very careful when you get to the point where your twin contacts you and you go, oh, great, okay, well, we'll see if we see them, and if we don't, no big deal. And when you genuinely can be in that space and really feel that, that's when you know you're at a place of surrender. When you're still on your edge going, oh my God, I'm going to meet my twin, and oh my God, is things going to change, and it's reunion. Expectation, it's a hard one to let go of sometimes, but you really need to practice that if you want to move forward.
Also, with the thought of expectation, we're really stuck on that with this one, because this is the
That's just
core
what I read
concern.
through the whole thing.
This is the core concern for this question, is when you finally get expectations sorted out even just a little bit, it might not be a bad idea that next time you're in touch with your twin, find out what their expectations are. Because if you keep on, every time you're in touch with them, if you keep on inflicting your expectation on them, you might not at all be exposing yourself to the opportunity to understand what their expectations are. Maybe there's another way of communicating for yourself that would more align them with the headspace that they are in.
Mm.
So yeah, it's as much as expectations need to be lowered, they still need to be understood. So on both sides, understand what the expectations are for being back in touch.
The last comment I wanted to make on this question was boundaries. And it's interesting, the next question, it's an opposite of boundaries. But this one, to me, it sounds like you really need to put up more boundaries with this person. If they're agreeing to meet with you and then they ghost you again and they don't show up, maybe next time you have communication of, hey, let's meet up, you might want to set a firm boundary instead of giving all your power away to them, going, oh, yay, we're going to meet, and just dropping your whole life, which I don't even know if you're doing, but that's just what I'm reading into this, is set a boundary and say, look in the past, it's been, we agree to meet and then we don't because you lose all communication. So we're either meeting or we're not. It's time maybe for you to get a little firm with them and with yourself and stand up for yourself with some self-respect and go, enough. I deserve respect. I deserve to be treated with kindness. And if you can't do that, then I don't even want to meet with you. Plain and simple. I know a lot of times the feminine is really afraid to do that because we're like, oh my God, we're going to scare them away and they're never going to communicate with me again. Honestly, though, that's exactly what they're looking for. That's what they want from you, is for you to finally say enough. So give that a try. Anything else?
No,
Okay.
I think that was a good capper for that question. I wouldn't doubt there's going to be some comments on that. There's a lot of people out there that have a very similar story to this.
I know, even for me, I used to be so afraid of like saying anything because you don't want to push them away. You're like, oh my God, you're talking to me. Okay, I'll do anything. I'll drop my whole schedule for you. No, that's not self-respect. That's not self-love. And they feel it energetically. Even if they're not aware of it consciously, they feel it energetically. And they're going to mirror, oh, see now, I'm never going to get to the next question. One more thing now.
Now, you can continue on, but you don't realize how much you've just walked right into the next question.
That's good. Abandonment. They keep ghosting you, which is abandonment. Why? What are they mirroring to you? Are you abandoning yourself? Are you giving up you for them? Might be a good question to ask yourself, something to reflect on. Okay, I'm done now. I was on a bit of a rant for that one.
I liked Angie's rant. I really did. It was right cutting to the core of the question. Next question.
Yes. I could just do a whole video on that one, so we gotta go.
You'll have more of a chance after this question.
We're already at 17 minutes on one question. Okay. Hey, 17 minutes, 17
years. Here we go. This is another 17 years.
Yes.
My twin asked to see me, but when I replied, I felt he was not so eager to see me and was keeping me in a zone, and I began to feel uncomfortable. I remembered how it turned around 17 years ago when he called me. I canceled everything to go see him. We made love, and I had no call the day after. I don't want this suffering again. So I wrote to him explaining we both know what will happen when we see each other, and I wasn't looking for a simple flirt with him. I remind him that he is still married, and I don't want to suffer, so it would be better for us. So it would be better to see us when he will be free.
Yes.
I feel real grateful to myself for telling my boundaries and for caring for me first. But now I am also wondering if it isn't a way for me to take control of the relationship or lack of unconditional love for him. I know I have to make myself my first choice so that he could make me his too. But have I been too much in control? Many thanks for your comments. Here is a person who made a stand. Okay, I know where you're at. I don't want to just do the flirting thing. I don't want to just be having you see me on the side. But now they're afraid they've put too many boundaries and too much control in. Anytime, I'm going to step on sacred ground here. Now I'm going to get myself in trouble. Here we go.
Your turn?
My turn.
Okay.
I'm
going to have a sip of my tea.
When two people meet and they have a great connection and then make love and then one or the other, I'm going to borrow from the first question, ghosts the other. It always reminds me of a favorite saying of mine. Really kind of changed my life. That men give love to get sex, and women give sex to get love. Okay. If the object isn't a bit of both here on both sides, then the efforts are not at all aligned in genuine purpose. Ah, yes. Totally canceling plans to see somebody. I don't blame anybody for doing that. Sometimes you have to open the door wide open. And when you do, when you cancel all other plans to see somebody and you don't necessarily get what you want, you got to give yourself the effort. The congratulations for putting out the effort. Sometimes you do have to alter plans to give something a chance to happen. But if you do it time after time after time after time, that becomes a repeating pattern. Another favorite saying of mine is doing the same thing time after time and expecting different results. That doesn't work either.
And if you're going to continue doing that, just like we said in the last question, you're abandoning yourself. And when we abandon ourselves and then we wonder why our twin ghosts us, well, because they're simply mirroring the same thing back to us. They're not going to come to us because we're not going to come to us. But getting back to her question, though, she's now saying, have I put too many boundaries? Personally, I think you did awesome. I think that's exactly the right thing to do. You weren't harsh, you weren't mean, you weren't rude. You just simply said, this old routine that we have, this isn't working for me. I deserve more. You deserve more. We deserve more, and so does your other relationship. So no, I don't want to be in between of all this anymore. When you're free and you're ready to actually commit to me, great, then we can have a connection. But in the meantime, you go live your life, I'll live mine. Hallelujah! Like, wow! Good job!
Boundaries can sometimes be a little bit of a test, and testing is sort of like playing games. So this is not really what I'm talking about. Boundaries, if you put in relatively healthy boundaries, or at least a good effort on them, if somebody is actually respecting the relationship, they will also work with and respect the boundaries. If the boundaries just make someone too hard to get, and they stay away because of that, that means that they weren't ready to put forth very much energy into the relationship anyway.
That's right.
So boundaries are actually kind of a little bit of a test of others. Our little dog here is getting really rambunctious.
She's just got a psycho over there. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, it's okay. I was having troubles handling this too.
That was funny.
When you have a dog bouncing beside you with their little ball, thank goodness it doesn't have a squeaker.
Yeah, that one's hidden.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't see an unhealthy amount of boundaries here at all.
No.
What I see is more honest and open communication, and don't think that I don't know what is really going on here, is what the person asking the question has really said.
Yeah.
So...
And you're breaking a pattern, which I think is great too. You're recognizing this old pattern going, you know what, this pattern isn't working for us, so why am I continuing with it? Excellent. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you didn't actually.
Okay.
So, yeah. No, not too much boundaries there at all.
No.
Not from what I see.
No, I think that's great.
In fact, there's barely even a test there. This is just showing that there's a little bit more growth needing to happen. Maybe more on the other person's side, because, you know, when someone's setting boundaries, that to me signals quite a bit of growth and stability.
Mm-hmm.
All good with that. All good.
Mm-hmm. We're there now.
Yeah.
Yeah. The two big questions are
The
done.
two long questions.
Yeah, well done. You were concerned about reading all that. You did awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, now for the questions I haven't pre-read. Okay, so can you please say more on twin flame / soulmate synchronicity? There is a person who I have a crazy sync with, saying the same things, being ill or healthy or headachy at the same time, at the same day, and much more. This is overwhelming, and I wonder if it's possible that this amount in a soulmate, that it's possible to have this amount in a soulmate connection. Please tell me about your syncs with Rob. There's a question for you. In the first years of your journey. I'd like to comment first on this.
Okay. I have a whole pile of
Yeah,
notes
you have
on
a
the
whole
side.
margin. You
Yeah.
need a piece of paper beside your margin.
I know.
First of all, we are headed towards a time of greater spiritual connection, and synchronicities are going to be becoming more and more common at what we would traditionally word as lower and lower levels. Not demeaning the levels, it's just that there are opportunities for these greater connections. Connections that we consider to be very rare are going to be happening more and more often as people become more and more aware of various levels of spirituality and various ways of communicating outside of just noise and looking. There's noise and looking. Let's call that 3D. Okay.
I get to
little
read
Miss
all my notes.
Little Miss Margins full of notes. Her turn.
Okay, so first, I like that this question is about a soulmate rather than a twin flame, because so many people are like, "Oh, soulmates. We don't want to be with soulmates. We don't want to be with karmic partners. We want the twin flame only. Everybody else, you don't count." And you know our feelings on this. If you're new to us, maybe you don't. We so honor the soulmates and the karmic partners. We say it so often. We would not be together were it not for our previous relationships.
I have come to understand my own interpretations. I guess I'm allowed them. That a soulmate relationship is very, very close energetically to a twin flame relationship. It's the next closest energetic level that I could possibly imagine. And it's very possible that, in fact, in a lot of cases, quite likely, that even a slightly dysfunctional twin flame relationship and connection could be easily exceeded by a very close, very well aligned soulmate connection.
For sure.
So I don't really like to say that there's a whole lot of difference on the ladder of or scales or anything. They're both very, very strong, very good styles of relationships.
So on that note, yes, you can have very similar synchronicities and connections with a soulmate that you would have with a twin flame. Just to give you an example in my own life, if you haven't watched our story videos and you don't know this, I, in my whole dating years, dated 4 Robs. So this is Rob number 2. Rob number 4 was a very powerful soulmate. And we had like an instant connection, much like we had. It didn't have the same intensity, but it was actually Rob number 4 that helped me get over Rob number 2 because I needed to do that. That was part of my journey.
Bah, Rob
right.
number 2.
You don't count anymore. And yes, we had a lot of synchronicities, a lot of similarities, and just an instant bond and connection. So, it can be hard to know the difference between. Well, I know we're freezing. I was trying to do this earlier.
Okay.
I don't know why. It can be challenging to know the difference between a twin flame and a soulmate. And actually, we want to do a video on that. I have a bunch of notes written out about that. We'll eventually do that video. But just to elaborate on your question about synchronicities between Rob and I, this is where I had to write all the notes because I was trying to remember a bunch of them from the beginning. So
I gave her the clipboard 5 minutes ago.
Yes,
it's
thank
okay.
you. So first synchronicity was that we both used to live in Edmonton. Rob moved to Calgary, which is where we live now, the city that we live in now, years before I did, and then I moved. Before I moved, though, I started awakening spiritually, and I started yearning for a deep soul connection, even before meeting him. That's actually one of the signs of a twin flame often, is that you are yearning for, you don't even sometimes know what, you just feel like there's somebody out there for you. So I felt this pull to move to Calgary. I moved, and then I did a really weird thing, and I put a note in the laundry room of the apartment building I lived in saying, "Hey, I'm new to Calgary, looking for friends." That's how we connected. So a weird synchronicity on how we even met. Then another synchronicity was about 2 weeks before we even met. I had gone skydiving for the very first time. When I met Rob, found out he skydove.
Skydoved?
Is that right?
No.
Skydived?
Skydived.
I don't know how you say that.
I'll say skydived.
He was a regular skydiver.
Yeah.
So we had that neat, weird thing in common. Then the second day, the day after we met in person, Rob was going whitewater rafting, and I had only like 3 weeks later already booked a trip to go whitewater rafting. So we had like all these weird connections, synchronicities. Also a neat one when we first met. Rob had just started 2 weeks of holidays. He, back then, and even still now, worked at a very intense, long hour kind of job. So if we had met when he was working his regular hours, our connection wouldn't have been what it was because we wouldn't have had the time. So, I mean, the dynamic of how incredibly synchronistic it was that he had just started 2 weeks of holidays when we met was amazing. Just amazing.
You
So
needed it, and it was there. It wouldn't have happened that way any other way.
It just no way. So, yeah, and I probably could think of more. Did I write any more on here? Skydiving, whitewater rafting, that we both grew up in Edmonton. I think I said that.
There was a very common path that we seemed to be on. We were separately almost on the same style of journey. I moved to Calgary looking for greater connection to mountains. She moved to Calgary for a connection to this area that she had not really been able to define.
I was going to say also our apartment building. We were living in the same apartment building, and we both wanted to be facing west. Me for sunsets and a mountain view, and I think yours was a mountain view.
Mine was just a mountain view, and I love to watch thunderstorms approaching cities. They're fun.
So that was another synchronicity. We both lived in the same building. The building we lived in had 2 towers, so we could have easily lived in opposite towers. But no, we lived not only in the same tower, we lived on the same side of the building, on the west side of it. So we would actually phone each other and look. I would look up on my balcony and he would look down. It was super fun. Yeah. So those are some of the synchronicities. I don't know if you remember more.
No, not really. There was just a lot of commonality in our story.
Lots, yeah.
Where we were raised, various reasons why we moved to the same place.
Inner child stuff.
Stuff, timings that just worked. The whole story was just like a merging of 2 roads. If you're going to drive on the road, you're going to merge.
Oh, that sounds romantic. A merging of 2 roads. Oh.
I keep on thinking of those who merge and run over each other at the same time.
Oh, that's not romantic.
That's not very romantic.
Okay. You can do the next question now. We will eventually do a whole video on signs of a twin flame versus a soulmate.
That one's going to take a lot of prep work.
I know, because what I want to do is write out all the signs, but then also tell you a little bit of our journey and how those signs applied to us, which some of them we just shared. We'll do that someday.
Okay, we have a question here. Hi, Rob and Angie.
Hi.
Hi. When you guys separated for the first time in 1998, how was your separation? Was it sudden, expected, or an ugly one? Did you guys mutually part after knowing you had a magical connection? How did you move on until you realized you were twins in 2012? During this period, did you feel the pain of separation immediately?
Are you going first?
I'll go first on this one.
First.
Was it sudden? Relatively sudden. As per what it was sudden to start, but it was very, very, very long to actually separate.
But wait, it was less sudden for you because you're the one that broke up with me. So you had it planned for a little while. It was sudden for me because I didn't see it coming.
You didn't see it coming.
No.
Can't help that.
He sat me down at his kitchen table in early January and fired me. So he waited until Christmas was over and New Year's was over, and then he broke up with me. So you were already thinking about it, I think, at Christmas time.
Yeah, I think early December, actually.
Yeah.
So it took a month to get around to it.
Yeah. So it wasn't really sudden for you, but it was for me.
Was it mutual?
No. Well,
No.
yes and no. That's a hard one to answer.
It was only understandable. It wasn't really desired on either one of our behalves.
No. I didn't want it, but I did. And why I say that, it was so confusing because the magical love, that love bubble that we talk about, was now gone. And this man that I fell in love with that was so sweet and kind and gentle and loving was now like intense and grumpy and drill sergeant-y and just not very nice because the love bubble was gone and now we were in the triggering phase. You know how that one goes.
As per the question, during this period, did you feel the pain of separation immediately? Yes. Yeah. It's one thing to fire a person, but it's another thing. And it wasn't work. It was just the relationship firing, just to be clear. It was actually a very slow, painful separation because it actually took us a couple of years to really, truly get to the point where we weren't in contact.
Yes. But before we go there, I was kind of answering the previous question of, was it mutual? And that's where I'm saying it was, but it wasn't, because I wanted it over because it wasn't what it was in the beginning. And I was like, this isn't fun anymore. I'm not enjoying this. But I still wanted the old Rob, and I was super confused. Like, what happened to that man that I fell in love with? Where'd he go? So while he's the one that broke up with me, it's not like we sat on the couch and decided together, okay, let's break up. When we broke up, I begged him to not end it, but yet there was a part of me that wanted it ended. So it was very confusing for me, very confusing.
I didn't want it to really end either, but it certainly felt healthier to put that relationship on the back burner. Now, and how did you move on until you realized you were twins? Yeah. Okay, like I said, it took a couple of years to actually move on to the point that Angie wasn't part of my day-to-day thinking, and maybe even week to week or bi-weekly part of my life. It took a long time to finally pry away.
You know that question that we just answered about they would make love and then not speak to each other for a while? That was us.
Yeah.
We went through that for years. A couple years we did that. Sometimes it was only 2 weeks apart, and then other times it was months and months apart. But yeah, finally we were like, okay, we just can't do this because we know where it ends up every time we come back together. And of course, not understanding the dynamic and understanding that you're mirrors and all this and the work you need to do, it was really confusing. Oh my God, it was confusing.
We were doing our own lessons on setting boundaries. And failing.
And failing.
Failing miserably.
Well, we'd try and then we'd fail. So for me...
Just barely. It was a lot of fail and just a lot of knowing that the trying wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
So it was almost like we were accepting failure.
Yeah. For me, how did you move on? When I finally was able to move on, there was 2 steps, one from him, one from me. Mine was I had what's called the life between lives regression. So that's where instead of taking you back to a past life, you go back to spirit. And when I went back to spirit, I met Rob there, so his soul, his higher self, and he told me we were not meant to be together in this life. Obviously, that's not true. We're here. But it was like his soul needed to tell me that so I would finally let him go and move on with my life. It was friggin' hard, but I finally was like, okay, whatever that magic was that we had was beautiful and unique, and I got to let it go. So that's where, for me, I finally moved on. And the other thing that helped us was when you got into a really solid, permanent relationship.
I got into another relationship in roughly 2002.
Which I think was actually the same year I had my life between lives regression. That's funny. Yeah. I should look at that.
That's another one of those parallels.
Yes.
From the earlier question. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I got into another relationship, and that relationship took precedence and was very important in my life. And I didn't know it when that relationship was starting, but it was going to expose me to tons and tons and tons of growth. that would then be very useful in helping us get back together 12 years later after that relationship has started, which was 17 years after we had, in theory, broke up. Took a long time.
Yes, it did. Now, just to reiterate, because our story was 17 years apart, and these other two that we're talking about tonight, which, interestingly enough, were 17 years, I often like to reiterate to people, don't panic when you hear that. So many people are like, oh my God, I can't do this for 17 years. Things have sped up so much. We were like kind of groundbreakers on this path, not that we even knew it at the time. But now there's so much more twin flame information. There's so much more acceleration on the journey. We're all more ascended. So things are happening way quicker than they used to. So don't think that your journey has to take 17 years. It does not. Just to help alleviate some panic.
Agreed.
Yeah. Now, should we finish there? We're at 40 minutes. That one might take a while.
That one might take a while.
Yeah.
You know, I just looked down 2 questions. There's the word ghost again. You think this was a Halloween video?
It's a common twin flame term.
Yes, it is.
Yes. All right, so I guess we'll wrap it up there. We're trying to make these a little shorter instead of like an hour and a half long like they used to be. And that's why we'll do them more frequently. So yes, if you want us to answer your question, you can either ask it on YouTube if that's where you're watching us, or on our Facebook page, and we will add it to the list.
So yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. Sometimes you get a question that sounds similar, but there's a different angle to it, like similar to other questions. So we recognize that, and we'll keep on answering similar questions from different angles, because really, because they're similar, that doesn't make them the same.
No.
Everybody's experiences are slightly unique, and there's always somebody that relates to the questions. We sometimes wonder that. We've learned to accept that. Okay.
And just also to say, we also have a couple other series. If you have not connected yet, we are starting, or have started, a new series called Creating Union. It's all about the different ways to create union and the different tips on how to get there. And we still have our tangent talks, which we'll start doing more of too. So we will be back with more videos of all types.
And just one comment, just in case we look like we've dropped out of sight for a few days, we have a vacation coming up. So for the first few days of March, we're going to drop out of sight.
Yes, good point.
Okay.
All right, we will say goodnight. We love you guys, and we will catch you soon.
Okay.
Bye.